G'day, mate. Are you a man or you a kid? Are you a man or you a kid? Are you a man? You a kid. Well, this is a story. It's called The Jealous Friend's Ploy to Find the Real Man in the Rich Kid. Only because it's not the kid's fault that they're getting targeted. You see, Tommy Dutton, who went through life being bashed by boons left, right, and centre, and he was getting bashed. He was getting bullied in every way possible. He tried to escape it, but the bullies weren't afraid to trespass onto his property. And besides which, he was from a poor family, and he couldn't figure out why he's under attack by the boons. And what made things worse, a friend from his school was having a real great life. His family went on great holidays, every school holidays period, and also they got every household gadget known to man. The thing about this whole mess was the friend was a complete loser. Like he would run away from fighting instead of standing up to them, which Tommy couldn't understand. And after about a whole childhood from being harassed by bullies, the bullies told Tommy that he needs to toughen up if he wants to make it in the real world, because they noticed he was very good. He was a very good bloke who won't ever point the finger at anyone, let alone the poor people. By the way, the friend's name was George Gunner, and he was a complete loser. While his family were getting on with their lives, George tried to make crappy dinner party conversation. How's your day? Oh yeah, eat nicely. Every time he saw anyone he knew, which at that time George felt that it was right. George Tommy gave George a ring to ask him if he would want to go to the penny arcade, and George said, "Oh yes." In a way, a complete loser would say, "Oh, I'd love to go to the penny arcade to meet up with those young dudes that used to go like us stand to me." So Tommy arranged all of his friends to be there so they can all meet them, because Tommy thought that George needed friends and that would keep him off the street. And George and Tommy were sharing about the losers at school, which to Tommy weren't losers at all, but really Tommy had it in his heart that not to hurt George's feelings. So he kept on telling George, "You're cool, you're cool. Don't let anyone tell you that you ain't cool, fella, because you are." Well, that made George very happy and started to talk in a way that he didn't know really what he was implying. But it didn't matter much to George because he had a friend, and that made him ever so happy. When Tommy and George were done talking to each other's friends, they started to head home, and Tommy, who the loser didn't want the loser over his flat, tried to walk him home, but George, who was so excited that he had a friend, asked if he could stay at Tommy's flat because he wanted to be cool. Well, he didn't have cool friends like Tommy when he was young, and George tried to imply, even if what he was doing was just bludgeoning on his spare mattress and listening to music, and he tried to make Tommy think he wasn't cool, so he had to have him over. Not that he thought George was cool anyway. I haven't seen any cool people with the name of George in my entire life. But he said, come over and we'll get a few beers down us, because you need to feel young and stupid." So Tommy said that because when it came time to call off this friendship, because he doesn't want to be cool anymore, George would find it awfully hard to get back onto his own 2 feet, and so while Tommy has a good life, George will suffer, at least till we get to the stage where we are growing up. Tommy went to his house and spoke mainly to George's parents because to Tommy they were cooler than George, and his parents, told Tommy to encourage George to clean his room. Try to do it in a cool way or something. And if he cleans his room, then take him out somewhere so he could be cool. And while Tommy would do it, he didn't really want to help George. He really wanted to tease him, mate, with his family and friends. So every time he helped George, Tommy kept saying to George, "I'm not your daddy. I'll never be your daddy. I'm really a cool person, and you're my little yet cool dude." And George, when Tommy said that, George's eyes lit up, and he really liked it when he said that so much. Every time that Tommy did tease him, it seemed to hurt George in so many ways that even the New Year's Eve party they went to at the local club, Tommy told George to enjoy himself and not worry about anyone who wants to tease him. And if anyone told you that you're not a man because you ain't got a beer, just tell them that I'm a man. I've got a penis, and that makes me a man. But George ordered a bourbon and coke, and I am a man. And Tommy thought to himself that George is just being young. And then he stopped saying to George how to be an adult. And then after the New Year's Eve party, Tommy had to walk George back to his house because he didn't want George's parents seeing him like this. After 3 years of this, Tommy told George that his friendship was over because he was sick of it. And Tommy wanted to hang around with cool people from his school and ditch George like a little baby who is having an emotional outburst. Oh, what my friends! Oh, what my friends! Oh, what my friends! Everywhere he went, at the job centre, at the rehab centre, as well as chucking a wobbly at his parents' work when they won't give him money. But because George began to be a really horrible person to everyone he meets. After 13 years of seeing psychiatrists and being on so many medications, which George couldn't figure out what to do about the side effects, and all of his school peers went back to treating him like a loser. But instead of bullying him, they will take him out to brainwash him into thinking that Tommy was the loser, and the real man drinks beer, and the men who say things like, "You got a penis, which makes you a man," are jealous of us, because they ain't getting in any problems. And George, who was easily brainwashed into believing anything he hears, saw him and spilled their guts about things that either didn't happen or might have happened once. But not worth telling cool people. But this seemed to make George get hopelessly drunk. And they all staggered home, singing, "Three drunk yarbos met in a lane." And at that point, George realized that his niceness was getting the better of him, and the drunks were taking advantage of his generous nature, and started to feel a bit weird. And this was mainly that his parents hated people who got drunk, and it was genetic for George to have these kind of thoughts. And even his siblings were getting drunk, but they weren't getting taken advantage of yet. But George got really sick of this, and told these friends that he is giving up beer, and as he thought, they never saw him again. It made George feel a bit weird at first. It had to be done though, because George wanted to move on and forget about the past and go on so many holidays, and for him to do that, he needed to look for work. And after months of knockbacks, he finally got his own business up and running, where he was a contract cleaner, which he really enjoys a lot. But he has been going all over the world, like places to New York. And while he was in New York, he saw a Yankees game, which prompted him to once again be a volunteer at baseball. So he did his research and noticed they were looking for volunteers at Yankee Stadium for their annual home run derby, and he was given his own t-shirt and also a free lunch, and his job was selling the hot dogs and occasionally sitting at the gate. George also went on cruise ships where he met this wonderful girl, and he took her out to dinner where he paid, and then back to his cabin for a nightcap where he wanted to have sex, but his voices in his head said that he had to wait till she is ready first, and she wanted to get to know each other. And after several months of emails and love letters in the post, George finally got married with this woman, and George said, "Finally, a friend likes me and not trying to be cool." And they had 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. And George lived with his family, living happily ever after. Well, I think Tommy was getting jealous, but that might be the voices in George's head. Tommy actually was getting better, except for the girl, because no one wanted him, because he mucked with a loser. And I guarantee that George isn't a loser anymore. Okay, well, sometimes I remember in 2004 I said I was going to get a private jet and fly to the other side of the world and volunteer in baseball. Well, it'd be good to do that, but I remember saying I'd get a private jet and do it. And I wouldn't go to the airport to get a private jet. I'd make the private jet pick me up from my house, and that would be really cool too. Okay, catch you later. Bye.